welcome to our live.
We had a huge graduation.
TikTok
Graduated
tayo guys,
30,000,
TikTok.
60,000 on campus. I'm recovered.
Let's eat breakfast
Wow,
guys.
amazing. Just hang on for a second. Stick there. We got math. The Ways and Means Committee math. That means taxes. And Dave Brad's got the charts. I want to go to John Solomon. So Rickers said that this Tulsi report that she declassified a couple weeks ago, and as you know, he's got, he may even have more years than you have, Solomon, of doing this. He said it's one of those shocking things
Let's
he's ever
breakfast
seen,
guys.
because it was the U.S. government at the highest levels that were actually going to domestic to look at Americans. It's something that dwarfed what happened with the FBI and the CIA back in the 60s and 70s. You've got more updates to this. So once again, tell this audience what this document is, the courage of Tulsi Gabbard to do it in her first 100 days of being in office. And where do we stand with this now, sir?
Well, the good news is in the statement last night, Tulsi Gabbard made clear that this is no longer an operating document, meaning that no federal law enforcement official shall rely on this 2021 memo written by the Biden White House and its National Security Council, changing the standards for how people would be investigated for domestic terrorism. And let's just remind people what the standard's been for decades. Since those abuses in the 60s and 70s, the FBI has always had a thing called a predicate. A predicate requires you, if you're going to open up an investigation, to have a reasonable factual basis that a crime has occurred. The Biden White House, in a classified document that they hid from the American people and from Congress, changed that standard in June of 2021 to you can open up and target an American if they're engaged in concerning non-criminal behavior. They eviscerated the civil liberty protections of the 1960s and 70s reforms. It meant that if someone was concerned about you, they could open up on you and take the full force of the government. It explains why we saw FBI agents out at school board meetings writing down license plates of parents who did no criminal activity, why they were targeting members of the military, why they were going after Catholics and coming up with a plan to spy on Catholics in Latin masses, and why they were looking at gun owners. A direct order from the Biden White House to the entire federal law enforcement told you, you no longer have to protect civil liberties. You can simply investigate someone if they do something that's concerning to you. Now, the good news is yesterday, Tulsi Gabbard made very clear. First, she declassified the document. Now she's made clear that this is no longer an operating document. No federal agent should rely on it. That's big news. The big issue is how many people were targeted between 21 and 25. Every one of their names should be made public, and every offense against them should be made public in the next round of disclosures by the Trump administration.
Are you working on that right now to get the 21 to 25 people, those individual names?
We are.
Sir?
Yeah, we're going to ask for those. We're going to file FOIAs from every agencies. What they did was they criminalized political dissent. This was an effort to use the FBI to silence people who didn't agree with the Biden administration. We've all been through it. You went through it, Steve. I went through it with Hunter Biden. The gun owners, the Latin Catholic mass goers, the parents. This is the memo that set that in motion.
So Solomon's on the case to get the next level. I'm going to talk about it. But just a side note, the Latin Mass was the Richmond office of the FBI is because my parents, who were deplorables, right, the working class folks, started from the Abbey at St. Benedict, started with one of the priests, Father Adrian, a small, tiny parish that was focused when they had been doing the Latin Mass off the side, but they allowed the Latin Mass, I think in the late 80s, early 90s, started the parish. That's why they targeted that parish to start off in the Richmond FBI office. And they said,
I didn't know that.
They said, yeah, it'd go out. I really never disclosed it, but it was that as soon as I heard about it, I got into it. So the FBI started with that parish because why? Steve Bannon's parents were there. But more importantly, this parish is the working class, the deplorables. You had, this is the beside the Catholic, the traditionalists that are now kind of fighting the Pope. They got the 7 to 8 kids, 2 of them going to the military, either enlist in the Marine Corps or go to the Naval Academy or something. Just the most patriotic. This is the Shire, right? This is the ones that John McCain used. These are the hobbits. This is the
Rina, Ankit Canada, thank you so much.
It shows you how depraved it is. That's not the Latinx Catholics. They went after the best of the best in this country, right? They were after working class people. They went after guns. They were going at this. They were trying to destroy traditional America and they must be held accountable. So Solomon, knowing you're on it is great, but what are we gonna do? We need hearings, we need an investigation, we need a special
We do.
prosecutor. This can never be allowed to happen again, brother. What are you doing about it?
There has to be such a penalty going forward that no one's even tempted to look in this direction again. Right now, that hasn't happened. Tulsi started the process. I also want to shout at FBI Director Kash Patel, who also put out a statement making clear that the FBI will no longer follow this guidance. So we have that confirmation. But people need to be investigated. The names of every victim that was targeted under this policy should be made public. We're going to work on it. And Jim Jordan and Ron Johnson and Chuck Grassley, the brave guys who unraveled prior capers by these law enforcement, they got to jump into action. Let's get some hearings going.
John Solomon, give me your assessment of what's happening in Saudi Arabia today, the geopolitics of it, the behind the scenes. Why is this such a big deal, sir?
At the end of the Obama years, the fulcrum, the seesaw, was tilted in Iran's direction. Iran was the big gorilla in the region. Donald Trump leveled off that seesaw in his first term by creating the Abraham Accords and starting to bring Arab Sunnis and Israelis together. If this trip results in a deal soon with Saudi Arabia and Israel, maybe Syria and Israel, the fulcrum will be tipped towards the Sunni Arab Israeli American alliance, and Iran will be isolated like it's never been isolated before, and the ability to bring it to its knees and get a peaceful resolution to its long years of violence could be at hand. This is one of the most historic trips, if that tilting of the seesaw can happen with Donald Trump on this trip.
John Solomon, where do people go to get just the news, all your content you're putting on social media, all of it, sir?
Yeah, thank you so much. JustTheNews.com and Jay Solomon Reports is my handle on all social media.
Brother Solomon, if you're on the case, I think people feel a lot better about
Thank
it.
you so much, sir.
A big hat tip to Cash, particularly Tulsi Gabbard. She worked out pretty well. Thank you,
Yeah,
sir.
they deserve the credit here. And President Trump, who set this in motion.
President Trump. We'll go to Dave Brett. Now, we may hear remarks here from the president. We're doing a two-box right now. He's getting out of his car right there, the president of the United States in Saudi Arabia. As soon as he addresses, this is all the big shots, the big woods, the world's capital markets are there. This is Prince. Yeah, take a full screen. People see enough of me. I ain't looking that good this morning. President Trump. In fact, Brad, I'm gonna bring in and don't go to Brad. I'm gonna just hear his disembodied voice. Brad, why is this such a big deal? President's about to address this business conference, which has got Larry Fink, you got Steve Schwartzman, you got Katzmatidis, you got all those billionaires, Elon Musk.
Trying.
Elon's just a face in the crowd. Why is this a big deal, Brad?
Well, I think it's called leadership on the world stage. The left, like you say, was decrying the worst stock market since the Great Depression. They were saying that with a straight face. I just checked, stocks keep going up. He's reassuring all the countries that he's got a plan. So when he goes and talks with all these countries, he's got a plan in his back pocket. He's not letting everybody know the full plan. But you see the deal with China. The rates are still very favorable to us. You'll never see that reported by the mainstream press. The markets jumped way up. He's working all the elements at the same time.
Hang on, slow down. Our reshoring guy is saying, this is not, he likes the tariffs and what he's doing, but he's saying, hey, he's taking out some of the fundamental building blocks of reshoring, bringing jobs back here. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, it's kind of like the budget package we're going to talk about, right? You've got to keep some of your friends on hand. And so he's got other strategic interests he's pursuing that involve, national defense, national security. You just heard the
Silent
petrodollar
L3,
discussion
thank
with
you
our
so
friend.
much.
There's a lot of moving parts, and that's
Country
what he's really
boy,
good at. He's
Magic,
good
thank
at
you
watching.
so
I'm going
much.
to throw tariffs at the world huge. See what the bond market says, see what the countries say, respond to that. And he's gathering information about who's our friends, who's being a smart aleck behind his back, who's not being pro-America. And he has the ability somehow, I've never seen any other president come close to this, but the energy package, the economic package, the budget
Country
package,
boy,
that
thank
people
you
get
so
upset
much.
at these little one-off disturbances. Well, of course there's disturbances, but they don't have an alternative. Robert Reich, for example, in the article I think you referenced yesterday.
Dave, hang on a second. I want you to get the right thing. I just want to explain what people are watching, and I want to keep that full screen. The president is in this center. It's going to be a massive This is a massive business conference. This is kind of the heart of why people are there, the Saudi trip. There's gonna be a huge dinner tonight, but President Trump is there with obviously MBS and the senior.
Where's Gaspar, man?
We'll pick that up live as soon as it starts rolling. Keep the camera right
I don't know
there.
why she's not there.
President is-
I think my brother in the Philippines now.
Treating him like royalty, are
Is
they
he?
not? I mean, this is even.
Yeah, they told me. Maybe eh. We need to talk my sister Ilona later.
Yeah, no, that's right. And you know, I left off the most important part
Because
of business is
they
doing
don't told
business.
me
So
with
it's all
that eh.
about,
But they told this me eh.
the government involved
Maybe
in every
he is
element of
in
our lives. Look what he's doing.
Escalante now?
Business
Yeah.
to business deals. We tried to do that. I
Tell-
tried
tell-
to do that.
tell
with
him I was looking for him
university,
one year.
our
I
political
didn't
guidance on
see
my
him.
own,
Yeah.
shows. But that's the best way to do it. You make friends. You'll notice his language, even toward China. We want them to be better off. We want to be
Saudi
better off.
Arabia,
But
Donald Trump in there in Saudi Arabia.
the monopolies, the tyrants,
In
the
Saudi.
communists, they don't play by the American business rules. Trump's an entrepreneur. He wants everyone to be very successful. He wants what's best off for people. He wants people to quit dying on the battlefield. All of his remarks have a huge moral component to them. And he doesn't like wearing that on his sleeve. But what he's accomplishing here, look in the Middle East, he's realigning every major region, right? Asia, Africa, it can't wait to meet with him. They're all pitching deals. I've been following some of that in the backdrop. The China, the India, Modi is with them. That's the second country, in terms of population weight compared with China. And so he's being the maestro here. The left, I think, should be a little horrified at the success he's encountering. When you see that everybody likes him wherever he goes, that's a pretty good sign. Iran, you've been talking about, he's keeping them at bay. He's going to make sure they don't get a nuke. He's
Thank you
making
so
that
much,
very clear
guy.
they will listen to us. He's given everyone else talking points and hints on what direction they should be moving, right? When you come to pitch a deal with me, I want to see some favorable terms. Maybe I'll negotiate, give you some favorable terms. But you better be coming with terms that are favorable to the U.S. and
Thank you so
the
much,
American
guy.
worker and
Blood will
local
cease.
growth. And so he's a
Thank you
win-win
so
guy,
much.
and that's what you're seeing right in front of you on the TV screen.
It's just amazing. He's gonna address this here shortly. That's why, this whole thing, in particular this budget, we'll get into this maybe now, because we're having time. If President Trump starts talking, we can hear it,
Yeah.
we're gonna go, live to that.
Sure.
This is why Birch Gold ended the dollar empire. Lula of Brazil is in Beijing today. She just got back from Moscow 3 days. They signed like 50 different documents, and I keep saying they look like two teenagers on their first date. Putin and you've seen them in the box watching the, frankly, amazing parade they had for the end of
Nungwin salot.
the
Hi.
victory in Europe Day, which the 25 to 35 million dead Russians. on the
Nungwin
battlefield.
salot. Hi, how are
They
you?
definitely had something
Thank you
to
for
celebrate.
coming.
The BRICS, and you got Brazil, and and Lula was there with them in the box. So you had Brazil, Russia, and China. The only guy they were missing was Modi. So people already know this thing in Rio is damn serious. This is why we've been covering it for 4 years. End of the dollar empire, birchgold.com/Bannon. Get the Rio reset. Get up to speed. Be the smartest person in the room. That's not where we're doing it. That's a side deal. But doesn't help people start listening to you.
Kain po na tayo.
Dave Bratt, as we've got this, we're watching the president at
It's
this,
time
at this
to-
kind of massive conference center.
P.
Talk to me about ways and means. Today there's gonna be a markup. We're gonna have Burchett and Eli on this evening. But walk me through the ways and means. Tax things it's kind of making my brain hurt, sir.
Yeah, it should. The Congress and the Senate were tasked with passing the Trump agenda. Some of that is in the bill. The Ways and Means is a super committee, right? It's the money committee that does all the taxes. So when you look at all the other 11 committees, they're responsible. Energy was responsible for saving a lot of money, but I think it's less than $1 trillion. And then the tax piece kicks in, but those numbers are getting huge. When you not only lower the rates, but then they also added a lot of other, exemptions and pass-throughs and other stuff that not everyone was expecting. And so if you add it all together with the reconciliation bills released so far, and including interest costs, which everyone remembers
Thank you
from a
so
year or
much,
two ago on
guys.
this show, that's over in the
Bloodless.
mandatory piece. So that's $1 trillion that's not showing up on paper here. These would add up, the Ways and Means would add up roughly $6 trillion in debt, and $7 trillion if they're made permanent. And so we had back in 17 what was called the
Thank you so much, guys, sa mga viewer and
TCJA, the
subscriber.
Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Is one acronym we need to get under our belts in the war room. The nomenclature, the TCJA, when you see that, don't freak out. That's just the Tax Cut and Job Act. That was kind of the baseline from 17.
Jill,
This
it's,
year,
thank you so
we're
much,
adding
Jyoti.
to that quite substantially. That was about $3.5 trillion in total. Now the Ways and Means has the TCJA extension deficit impact up from $3.5 trillion to $5 trillion. Largely due to changes in the itemized and other deductions. That used to save us some money. We got rid of some of the deductions back then, about
Sis Jill, thank you so
$1.5
much.
trillion savings, and we got rid of $1 trillion of that. So the numbers are going up. And as Biggs
Thank you
mentioned,
so much.
and as you were going over with him, we're, all this adds up to roughly 2 trillion to 2.5 trillion deficits per year going forward. And a lot of congressmen and women and senators are coming. Yeah. Yeah.
Slow down,
Yeah.
not so fast. How do you derive that number, the 2 to 2.5 trillion?
Thank you so much, guys.
Well, that's the entire budget going so far, and then you see Ways and Means adding a little bit to it. And then the other committee subtracting a little bit from it, but overall, it's probably
Thank you so
going
much, guys.
up a little bit. With all the language coming in, and then the Congress members are saying, well, we gotta do, what we really have to get to is spending reductions. Right? That's the whole problem, right? The revenues, as EJ said, are at highs. The spending's out of whack. It doesn't look like they're getting to the spending cuts. That's the problem. And without those further offsets, the spending cuts are called offsets in this tax lingo, that'll boost our debt to 134% of GDP by 2034, right?
Hang on,
Years out.
Professor, hang on,
Yeah.
Professor. You're going to economist, I think so. Correct me if I'm wrong. We have two things here. Number one, we're trying to get deficit as percentage of GDP from 6.5% to 7%, which is not sustainable.
Mag-quit
Everybody
tayo, guys.
says that, including Secretary of State and the President. Down to not to zero, which Dave Bratt, Steve Bannon, and the world possibly would like to do, but to
Tita.
a level set at 3.5%, right? And we're supposed to be on a glide slope that gets us there quickly, rapidly. Offsetting that is the theory that it's just not cut, but this is the last chance, as Scott Besson said over and over again.
Thank you so much, guys, sa mga viewer and subscriber.
By the way, they walk in the president, I hope that's it's like a
Thank you
2-mile
so
walk.
much.
It's like I hope somebody, president had somebody to a 2-mile walk. He would have brought his clubs and, played through.
Thank you so much, guys, sa mga viewer and
I
subscriber.
kinda don't get this. Is there an orb at the end of this? At the orb, is that what they're going back to? Just kidding. This
Hi,
is the
guys.
last of the supply side opportunities, and that means.
Country boy,
Yes,
Magic,
from
thank you so
1.7,
much.
8 or 2 to 2.5, 3, 3.5, whatever.
Thank you, my
The issue
friend.
is sense. Are we missing
Back to your
that?
channel
Because
soon,
what
guys.
I see on the supply side, the parts of the business stuff I like, which is the R&D and capital expenditure, there's not.
52.
Just around when Trump's
Pretty
around.
to
Of course,
OC.
Trump's gonna win in 2020, so it'll be
Thank you
around
so
for a while,
much.
but we're still, in case they steal it, we still gotta get worried, they don't make that part of the permit. And tell people why, it's not the gimmick, but what's this thing about permanent versus not permanent? Why is so many things not permanent? What cost does that add? Because this whole thing's kind of gimmicky anyway, using reconciliation, right? It's this kind of weird parliamentarian move. Explain
Thank
to
you,
people what this is so
everyone.
they know
Kukyana, thank you so much, Kukyana.
Yeah, well, and so the Ways and Means we're talking today, the
Thank you
charts
so
say, I'll
much.
post them have mainly to do with tax policy. And so, do I get the sense that we're doing the right thing there? No, because we went way beyond $1 trillion beyond
Thank you so much,
the
Cook
Tax
Yana.
Cut and Jobs Act with $1 trillion getting rid of itemized and other deductions. Those are pro-voter, but not pro-growth. And so you're keying right in on what matters. The write-offs that Dick mentioned on, capital machinery. Capital is the #1 driver of economic growth. I've been saying that for 4 years. We don't have enough of that. Now we've run out of runway, right? We have spending
One.
through the roof. We have not cut.
It's tea
And
time.
then we're doing a tax
Mag-tea
cut
tayo, guys.
package that's $1.5 trillion bigger than the tax
Tea
cut
time.
package back in 2017. And so they have to limit it somewhere. And so they limited it at making some of that permanent. It has to do with scoring. What all they add in.
Thank you so much,
Right?
guys, sa mga
And so
viewer and
they're trying to
subscriber.
minimize the political damage. Just as a thought experiment, just say, why don't we just cut tax to zero? Since they're good,
Country magic.
and no one wants to do that thought experiment on our side. Of course, that would be great, but you got
Cook Yana, thank you so much, sis Cook
You've been
Yana.
bringing that point out loud and clear.
Let's go, but we're gonna get the feedback up. And it's okay, everybody.
Please, soon sis.
We got audio, let's listen to some audio here for a second.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Thank you so much, guys.
Oh yes, this is really energetic. And we have with us the business leaders.
Grandma Teresa
presenting
Gilmore.
the Strategic Economic Partnership Agreements.
Please on,
To
my
commemorate
friend.
this moment, I'm deeply honored to welcome His Royal Highness Prince Hamad bin Salman, Grand Aziz Al Saud, Crown Prince and Prime Minister, and the 45th and 47th President of the United States of America, Mr. Donald J. Trump. Welcome. Please join the business leaders representing the Strategic Economic Partnership Agreements for a memorable photograph. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause and a deep appreciation for this moment and for our distinguished leaders. We witness this moment that reflects the trust and determination shared by two nations to move forward together. As you can see, the leaders at the center of this frame shaping the next phase of prosperity for both nations, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the United States of America. And now, distinguished guests, I'm deeply and truly honored to welcome His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud, Crown Prince and Prime Minister, to deliver his speech. Welcome, Your Royal Highness. The stage is yours. What a moment! What a moment! What a moment!
Hi guys.
Which is Dubai. That's one of the big financial centers of the world.
1 hour ko nito guys.
Basically kind of went to war with Qatar. It was essentially a kind of a brutal encirclement of Qatar.
Hindi na siguro.
So
Baka
that is
tingnan.
here is the actual codification of a ton of
Nagiinit siya guys. Ewan ko. Itong po nagamit ko, nagiinit kagad.
A lot of it back in the United States of America. But I don't think you say so. MBZ and Saudi Arabia were the two. Yes, let's go to President Trump. You got this. It's a tremendous honor to return to this beautiful kingdom and be welcomed back with such extraordinary generosity and warmth. I've never forgotten the exceptional hospitality shown to us by King Solomon, who's just, we talk about a great man. That is a great man. That is a great man, a great family. So that visit took place exactly 8 years ago. The graciousness of the royal family and the Saudi people is really unsurpassed, no matter where you go. Let me also thank the countless ministries, government officials, business leaders, and distinguished guests for that warm welcome. Very warm, and I know so many of you like to call out all of your names, but got a lot of problems. Could be here for a long time. We don't want that, so don't be upset. With this historic state visit, we celebrate more than 80 years of close partnership between the United States and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Ever since President Franklin Roosevelt met with King Solomon's father, King Abdul Aziz, aboard the USS Quincy in 1945, the U.S.-Saudi relationship has been a bedrock of security and prosperity. Today we reaffirm this important bond, and we take the next steps to make our relationship closer, stronger, and more powerful than ever before. It is more powerful than ever before. And by the way, it will remain that way. We don't go in and out like other people. We'll remain that way. I've come this afternoon to talk about the bright future of the Middle East, but first let me begin by sharing the abundance of good news from a place called America. In less than 4 months, our new administration has achieved more than most other administrations accomplish in 4 years or even 8 years. We've actually done, for the most part,
Thank you so
more
much guys sa mga viewer and subscriber. Thank you everyone.
Thank you. The day I took office, we inherited a colossal invasion on our southern border, an invasion like
Thank you
you'd
so
never wanna
much
see
din.
here. Nobody should ever want to see it. But within weeks, we slashed illegal border crossings to an all-time low, down 99.999%. That's good, even for this great gentleman standing right in front of me. That's a good number.
Michael Campbell, thank you so much Michael Campbell.
We had hundreds of thousands of people that came in at the same time last year.
Thank you so
And
much
last month,
Michael.
We had, in this massive border, 3 people got in. That's quite a difference. And we have no choice but to get a lot of the people that came in because they were not the best people. They were in many cases very bad people. We're getting them out. We're getting them out very fast. We're bringing them back to where they came from. We have no choice. After years of military recruiting shortfalls, enlistments in the U.S. Armed Forces are now the highest in 30 years because there is such an incredible spirit in the United States of America. We have tremendous spirit again. Just about a year ago, it was a big story, front page on every paper all over the world, that nobody wanted to enlist in our military, meaning we were way under enlisted. And just last week it came out that we had the strongest enlistment. They say 30 years, but probably it's maybe ever. They don't go back that far. It's the best, and that includes police officers, firemen, everything else. Is a great spirit in the United States right now. A brand new poll from Rasmussen just showed that the number of Americans who believe the nation is on the right track, they have a right track, wrong track, is now the highest in over 20 years. And it's hasn't been anything like
Thank you
this
so much.
because for many years it was the wrong track. And I can tell you for the last 4 years it was definitely the wrong track, but it's the
Thank you
highest
so
it's
much
been in many, many years. We renamed the Gulf of Mexico into the Gulf of America. That was very popular, other than perhaps with Mexico. And most importantly for the people in this room, the days of economic
Thank you,
misery of the last
everyone.
administration are
Bye,
rapidly
guys.
giving way to the greatest economy in the history of the world. We are rocking. The United States is the hottest country